This testing has been in the works for months now, and not just because testing all of these cards takes quite a lot of time, but more due to the fact that just getting every single Radeon RX 9070 XT is a very challenging task. And truth be told, this actually isn't every 9070 XT. There are a couple of models missing. I think there's two key models really, though it's not necessarily my fault. So the Asrock Challenger and Powercolor Reaper, neither of them are currently in production, as manufacturers are now prioritizing their higher, larger margin parts due to the overwhelming demand. I don't really like that strategy. It's a little bit dodgy releasing the models, then just cancelling them without actually officially cancelling them. But that's what they've done. They may bring them back. They haven't really specified one way or the other. Ultimately, I have no say in the matter. I just can't get my hands on them. So the good news is, though, we do have 14 models, and they're 14 models that you can currently purchase. That's handy. And they have been rigorously tested. We're looking at both gaming performance and thermals along with their features. So let's take a look at each model individually, and then we'll get into the results. But before we can do any of that,
today's video is brought to you by Insta360 and their Link 2 and Link 2C 4K webcams. Both models feature a high-performance half-inch sensor delivering crisp 4K video with an AI-powered audio algorithm that provides pretty great sound quality via the built-in microphone. Building on the original Link, the Link 2 series includes AI tracking for individuals and groups, auto framing, and gesture controls, which are pretty neat. Check it out. It also now offers modes such as customizable backgrounds, bokeh, even like a natural blur, so it really adds versatility to every use case. The Link 2, which is the one we're using right now, is equipped with a gimbal, which is perfect for dynamic use cases like teaching or demos, while the Link 2C omits the gimbal, which leans more into the conference call space. With various AI features, both new and improved, on offer here, and a very user-friendly desktop app experience, achieving the perfect presentation for you really couldn't be much simpler. So if you'd like to get your hands on one of these new Insta360 Link 2 series cameras, check out the links in the description for a special Amazon Prime Day offer. Back to you, Steve.
okay, let's start by taking a look at the Asrock 9070 XT Steel Legend, which is a white graphics card, though there is a dark version, which is black. Currently, the Steel Legend costs $715 US or $1,250 here in Australia. And for a base model 9070 XT, it is fairly well equipped. The triple fan cooler features ARGB lighting, there's a full-length backplate with cutout, and in total, the card measures 296mm long, 130mm tall, and 57mm wide. So it is a triple slot card, and all up it weighs 1,153 grams. As for power input, Asrock's gone with two 8-pin connectors, which is a standard configuration. Sadly though, there is no dual bias feature. Instead, Asrock has included an RGB header with a switch to turn the lighting on or off. Finally, the display output configuration is very standard with 3 display ports and a single HDMI output. So the Steel Legend then, it's a very plastic looking graphics card, and while it has a lot of flashy lighting effects, and some might appreciate that, it does look and feel very cheap in my opinion. The Taichi is Asrock's flagship 9070 XT model, currently priced at $800 US or $1,350 Australian. This version doesn't have a white option, so black only, and really it is a bigger, beefier version of the Steel Legend. In terms of design, it is very similar, though Asrock has added a few aluminium pieces to the fan shred, which does help give the product a bit more of a premium look and feel. They've also added in dual bias support, and the two 8-pin PCIe power connectors have been replaced by a single 12-volt high-powered connector. Overall, it's a bigger, heavier graphics card weighing 1,470 grams, so almost 30% heavier, and it measures 333mm long, 139mm tall, and 60mm wide. So this is another triple slot card and does feature a triple slot bracket. Overall, the Taichi looks to have it all, so I'm interested to see how it performs. Now, the most affordable 9070 XT model from ASUS is the Prime, at $720 US or $1,350 here in Australia. So this is a fairly basic graphics card, though it is of reasonable quality and has all the essentials such as a full-length aluminium backplate, dual BIOS, and a good array of display outputs, including 3 display ports and a single HDMI. It's a triple fan model weighing 1,100 grams, and it measures 313mm long, 131mm tall, and 50mm wide, making it a triple slot card. There's 3 8-pin PCIe power inputs, so loads of power input there, and given this is a Prime model, there's no fancy RGB lighting. So a simple but clean looking black graphics card. The other ASUS 9070 XT model is the TUF Gaming, and this model costs an insane $850 US right now, or $1,500 over here in Australia. That said, in terms of design, it's certainly one of the more premium looking models. When compared to the Asrock cards, there's a lot less plastic, though be aware, like some of the GeForce models, this isn't an all aluminium design. Still, it does mostly use aluminium, and as a result, it does look and feel a bit more premium. The card is also massive, measuring 330mm long, 140mm tall, and 63mm wide. In terms of weight, it tipped the scales at 1,448 grams, so it's similar to the Taichi. ASUS has again gone with 3 8-pin PCIe power connectors, along with dual BIOS support, but this time you are getting some ARGB lighting, which looks tasteful enough. Overall, the TUF Gaming is a very chunky 9070 XT graphics card. Moving on to Gigabyte, who also has 2 models, we'll start with the Gaming. Yes, the 9070 XT graphics card that simply named Gaming. So I guess all you dummies will know what to do with it then. Mine Bitcoin? Well, that was a joke. I don't think you guys are dummies, at least not all of you. Anyway, the Gaming is a very basic looking graphics card. It's reasonably compact for a triple fan version at just 289mm long. It also stands just 128mm tall, though it is 55mm thick, so will take up 3 slots. It's also reasonably heavy at 1,261 grams. For power input, Gigabyte's gone with a triple 8-pin configuration, and for the display outputs, they've gone with a more unique 2 DisplayPort and 2 HDMI port configuration. So if you do require dual HDMI ports, this could be the model for you. Though be aware there are a few other models with this configuration. Finally, there's dual BIOS functionality and ARGB lighting, along with a full-sized aluminium backplate with pass-through, so the Gigabyte Gaming looks to have it all. The most high-end 9070 XT Gigabyte offers is the Elite, and this is a much more serious-looking graphics card when compared to the Gaming. Pricing appears to be $760 US, though availability is poor in the US. Here in Australia, though, it can be had for $1,450. Now, when compared to the Gaming version, it is 23% heavier and is also much larger at 334mm long, 136mm tall, and 60mm wide, making this another triple slot card which will fully occupy all 3 slots. Like the Gaming model, it does feature 2 DisplayPort and 2 HDMI ports and uses 3 8-pin PCIe power inputs. Gigabyte has included dual BIOS functionality, full-size aluminium backplate with pass-through area, and an impressive array of ARGB effects, and I have to say the halo effector on the fans does look very cool. Although the fan shroud has been constructed entirely from plastic, it does still manage to look good, and there are a few interesting design elements here. Overall, it's a nice looking model that should perform well, but of course we'll have to check that out soon. Okay, time for a look at what Powercolor has on offer, and please note we're skipping over the Reaper as Powercolor and no longer making that model, so I was unable to get it from Powercolor or purchase it myself due to a lack of availability, and I have no idea if this one will ever return, but for now at least it is unavailable. So that means the most affordable Powercolor 9070 XT is the Hellhound, currently priced at $750 US or $1,200 here in Australia, making it the cheapest 9070 XT you can buy down under. This model is available in either black or white, and we'll take a quick look at the white version in a moment. The Hellhound is a basic graphics card, but it also includes all the essentials such as dual BIOS support, full-size aluminium backplate, 3 display ports, and a single HDMI output, and it's fairly compact for a triple fan card. In total, it measures 328mm long, 127mm tall, and 50mm wide, so it does take up 3 slots, and all said and done, it tips the scales at 1,172 grams. The fan shroud looks as though it's constructed from aluminium, but it's actually plastic. But despite that, the card does look and feel quite premium for a base model. There's no ARGB lighting effects, but it does include some light blue LEDs which provide a glowing effect at the end of the card, and you can't change the colour, so baby blue it is, and if that doesn't do it for you, you can toggle the lighting off via a switch. Now, here's a quick look at the white version, and Powercolor has done an incredibly good job with this model. The white version of the Asrock Steel Legend, for example, it's not very clean. The plastic fan shroud is partly white, but there is a lot of grey here, and then the backplate is mostly white, but the heatsink is silver and the PCB is black, so it doesn't really provide a very clean look. The Hellhound white in comparison is a work of art. The fans are white, the fan shroud is completely white, the heatsink and heat pipes are white, the power connectors are white, the PCB is white, the fan cables are white, the backplate is white, and even the I/O bracket is white. The only aspects of the card that aren't white include the GPU retention bracket and the screws on the rear side of the card, but apart from that, everything else that you can see when the card is assembled is white. So it looks awesome as a result, and will complement any white build perfectly, so good job by Powercolor here. The flagship 9070 XT model from Powercolor is their famous Red Devil, which is also available as an all-white model, though sadly we don't have that one to show you, so black it is. The Red Devil currently costs $820 US or $1,300 here in Australia, and as a flagship graphics card it is very large, measuring 340mm long, 134mm tall, and 64mm wide, and as a result it is one of the heaviest 9070 XTs we've seen at 1545 grams. Powercolor went with the standard 3 display ports and single HDMI output configuration, with a more standard 3 8-pin PCIe power input, seen across almost all higher-end models. You're also getting dual BIOS support, a full-size aluminium backplate, and ARGB lighting. Powercolor's also using a phase change thermal pad for the GPU, which should enhance thermal efficiency, so I'm keen to have a look at that. Now moving on to Sapphire, we have 3 models, and we'll start with their most affordable option, the 9070 XT Pulse, priced at $720 US or $1,300 Australian. The Pulse is a big graphics card, but also a basic graphics card. It appears as though cooling performance has been the priority here, which is nice if true, but what wasn't the priority is flashy lights and dual BIOS functionality. So it's more of a bare bones graphics card. Sapphire has also gone with 2 DisplayPort and 2 HDMI outputs with dual 8-pin PCIe power input. Whereas the Powercolor Hellhound is quite compact, the Pulse is a taller and wider product, though surprisingly they weigh about the same. The Pulse is a mere 3% heavier despite being 20% wider and 5% taller, and all up, the Pulse measures 321mm long, 133mm tall, and 60mm wide. So it is very much a triple slot card, indicated by the triple slot mounting bracket. The backplate features a huge cutout area, and the heatsink is also very large, so I'll be surprised if this isn't a highly competitive model in terms of thermals. Now the Pure, and this model costs $740 US or $1,400 Australian, and it only comes in white, as that's part of the Pure branding. So unlike Powercolor, Sapphire hasn't made the PCB white, it's black, the heatsink silver, and the power connectors are also black. Still, for a white build, it will fit in well enough. As for the specs, you'll find 2 HDMI outputs and 2 DisplayPorts, 2 8-pin PCIe power inputs, a triple slot bracket which isn't white, and some ARGB backlit Sapphire branding. The only thing missing here is dual BIOS support. Overall, the card weighs 1,233 grams, measures 323mm long, 133mm tall, and 61mm wide, and it packs 3 white fans. Then we have Sapphire's flagship, the Nitro Plus, and this model costs $770 US or $1,450 Australian, so it is getting up there, but I have to say, out of all of the 9070 XT models, this one is one of my favorites. Possibly my favorite, but yeah, certainly top 3. And this is because it looks great and has a few key unique features. That said, my only gripe with this product is that there's no black or white option, and as unique as the silvery grey colour is, it doesn't exactly fit that well with most builds. A white version would be perfect in my opinion. Some cool features here include a side grille design with ARGB light bar, along with the hidden power connector behind the removable magnetic backplate, which provides a really clean look. Like the other Sapphire models, there are 2 HDMI and 2 DisplayPort outputs. It's a triple slot card, though it is slightly wider at 64mm, slightly taller at 141mm, and slightly longer at 327mm. Yet despite only being slightly bigger overall, it's a massive 54% heavier than the Pure at 1,894 grams. The removable backplate accounts for 309 grams of that weight, so about 16% of the card's total weight. And really, this card does have 2 backplates, so this explains where a lot of that added weight comes from. Speaking of the removable backplate, behind it you will find a single 12-pin high-powered connector, along with an ARGB header. It's a really neat design that I think works well. Now, the most affordable 9070 XT we have from XFX is the Swift, which costs $720 US or 1,230 Australian dollars, making it one of the more affordable models. This is a stealth black card, which looks really nice in my opinion. And like the Powercolor Hellhound, the fan shroud has been made entirely using plastic, but despite this it does look very nice and feels quite premium. You do get a full-size aluminium backplate though, and interestingly this is quite a wide graphics card at 65mm, which XFX calls 3.5 slots, but truth be told it's 4 slots, as you can't use the 4th PCIe slot. So despite being reasonably compact in terms of length at 320mm, it is a wide unit. Still, this is a triple fan model, and at 1,350 grams it is reasonably heavy for a shorter card. XFX gone with 3 display ports and a single HDMI output, along with 2 8-pin PCIe power inputs. You also get dual BIOS support, but there's no ARGB lighting, just a white backlit XFX logo, which is in keeping with the clean aesthetic. Next we have the Quicksilver from XFX. This model is yet to appear in Australia, but can be purchased over in the US for $740. In essence, the Quicksilver is a bigger, heavier version of the Swift. It's around 7% larger and 14% heavier, so again this model will occupy 4 expansion slots at a width of 69mm. It also measures 348mm long and 130mm tall, and weighs 1,545 grams. Again, you do get dual BIOS functionality, but no ARGB lighting effects, just a backlit XFX logo. There are 2 8-pin PCIe power inputs, 3 DisplayPort outputs, and a single HDMI. The version I have features the magnetic air fans, which are easy to remove for cleaning and replacing should they fail, so it's a nice touch, though please be aware the standard model delivers the same cooling performance, and right now the magnetic air is difficult to find and does cost considerably more, so I'd just go for the standard version. Finally, we have the Mercury, XFX's flagship 9070 XT, coming in at a cost of $780 US or $1,350 here in Australia. Like what the Quicksilver is to the Swift, the Mercury is an even bigger and flashier version of the Quicksilver. This model weighs 1,705 grams, making it 10% heavier than the Quicksilver. It's also slightly longer at 349mm, much taller at 142mm, and even wider at 72mm. In fact, the Mercury is the longest, widest, and tallest 9070 XT on the market right now. It's also one of the best looking in my opinion, with a very clean design that's available in either white or black, and we have the white version. The LED light bar that spans the card looks very impressive, and although the white version doesn't have a white heatsink, it still looks good. XFX has again gone with a more typical 3 DisplayPort and single HDMI configuration. Of course, you're getting dual BIOS support and a full aluminium backplate with pass-through area, and ARGB with that light bar. So it is a fully featured model with a monstrous cooler, so let's see how it performs. So it is time for testing, and we'll start with the thermal data, which has been recorded after an hour of looping the F125 benchmark at 4K. For the case, we're using the Antec Flux Pro in its standard configuration with a 360mm AIO mounted in the top, and of course the CPU of choice is the Ryzen 7 9800X3D. All models were tested with an ambient room temperature of 21 degrees, and the same conditions were maintained for the duration of the test. Okay, let's get in the data. Okay, so first up, let's take a look at the average GPU temperature. This is measured by averaging the results of the various temperature probes featured across the RDNA 4 GPU, and is generally 20 to 30 degrees cooler than the hottest spot within the GPU die, known as the hotspot, which we will look at in a moment. So when looking at these stock results, it's also important to keep in mind that this data is far from an apples-to-apples comparison. It's very much what you can expect to see out of the box with no manual tuning. But the reason why this isn't an apples-to-apples comparison is due to the fact that there are a number of changing variables from one card to another, such as the fan speed, power draw, and operating frequency, so keep all of that in mind. And for reference, I've included the fan speed and average core frequency for each model on the graph. The XFX Mercury and ASUS TUF Gaming produced the lowest GPU temperature of 51 degrees, and both clocked reasonably high at 2680 MHz. That said, the fan speeds are a little high at 1600 and 1700 RPM respectively. Now, the range we're seeing here for the average GPU temperature is fairly narrow, as we're only looking at an 11 degree difference between the hottest and coolest operating models, and with the lowest performing version being the Sapphire Pulse at 62 degrees, it's still very cool. So let's move on to check out the hotspot temperatures. Even the hotspot sees fairly tight margins with a 13 degree range between the hottest and coolest running models. Again, the XFX Mercury came out on top with a peak operating temperature of 76 degrees, followed by the Swift and Quicksilver at 79 degrees. So XFX has done an excellent job here, though the Swift and Quicksilver did report lower average clock frequencies, so we'll see how that affects performance shortly. Most of the 9070 XT graphics cards operated at between 80 and 85 degrees, so again a very tight range, and while we find the Red Devil and Nitro Plus further down our graph than you might expect, the fan speeds were quite low on those models, while the operating frequency was rather high. Then the worst performers include the Asrock Steel Legend and Gigabyte Gaming. Neither were terribly impressive, as they were not only the hottest models, but also some of the loudest. Now for a look at the stock GPU memory temperatures, and here the results range from just 74 degrees all the way up to 90 degrees. The most impressive models include the ASUS Prime, XFX Swift, XFX Quicksilver, and surprisingly the Gigabyte Gaming. Then we see quite a large jump up with the XFX Mercury at 82 degrees, followed by the Gigabyte Elite and ASUS TUF Gaming at 84 degrees. Now when it comes to VRM temperatures, we see the largest range yet. Here the Gigabyte Elite provided the best results at just 57 degrees, with the gaming coming in at 59 degrees, so Gigabyte's doing something right here. The XFX Mercury and ASUS TUF Gaming also tested well at 64 degrees, but if we jump to the opposite end of the graph, we again see Sapphire's Pulse struggling at 86 degrees. It's still a safe working temperature, but also much hotter than other base models. Okay, so with the graphics cards now noise normalized, we still have the issue of some models clocking much higher than others, but that can be more difficult to normalize. Now, under these noise normalized conditions, the Asrock Taichi does well when looking at the average GPU temperature, as does the XFX Quicksilver, Mercury, and Sapphire Nitro Plus. The weaker performing models here include the Powercolor Hellhound, Gigabyte Elite, and in particular, the ASUS Prime and Gigabyte Gaming. Now, when looking at the hotspot temperatures, the XFX models all performed very well, and I think the only reason the Mercury was a few degrees warmer than the Quicksilver is down to the fact that on average it clocked 6% higher, which is a significant increase. The Sapphire models also performed well, and we see a similar situation where the Nitro Plus ran a few degrees hotter than the Pure and Pulse, but it does also clock higher. Again, the weakest performers here include the Asrock Steel Legend and Gigabyte Gaming, though the Gigabyte Gaming was reported to be clocking very aggressively in this test. Not sure how that will apply to other games, but that's what we were seeing here. When it comes to memory temperatures, XFX takes out top spots with the Quicksilver and Swift models. Then we have around a 10 degree jump up in temperature for the ASUS Prime and Gigabyte Gaming. Most of the models did run between 78 and 85 degrees, with the Powercolor Hellhound and Asrock Steel Legend being the hottest at 84 and 85 degrees respectively, but even these temperatures are well within safe limits. What's interesting though is that despite weak GPU and memory temperatures when compared to the competition, the Gigabyte Gaming is very good in terms of VRM thermals, peaking at just 59 degrees while the Elite was amazing at just 51 degrees. Still though, most models did run very cool, and although the Asrock Steel Legend and ASUS Prime were the worst performers, at 71 degrees, they weren't bad. Okay, time to look at gaming performance, and we'll start with Black Myth Wukong using the built-in benchmark at 1440p with the high preset. Here we're looking at a large 6% performance variance between the slowest and fastest 9070 XT models. The XFX Mercury, Sapphire Nitro Plus, and Asrock Taichi all produced the best results, followed by the Sapphire Pure, Powercolor Red Devil, Gigabyte Elite, and ASUS TUF Gaming. The worst performers included the XFX Swift, Quicksilver, and Sapphire Pulse. Testing with Call of Duty Black Ops 6 shows a tighter spread of results, just a 4% difference between the fastest and slowest models, which is more what I'd expect to see. Again, the Sapphire Nitro Plus does very well, but this time we have the ASUS TUF Gaming and Powercolor Red Devil a little further towards the front of the pack, with the XFX Mercury slipping down, though it was only 2% slower than the Nitro Plus. Again, the weakest models include the Sapphire Pulse, XFX Swift, and Asrock Steel Legend. Finally, we have Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered, and here we're back to a 6% margin between the slowest and fastest models. The standings here are very similar to those of Call of Duty. The Sapphire Nitro Plus is once again the fastest graphics card, while the Asrock Taichi, Powercolor Red Devil, Sapphire Pure, XFX Mercury, and ASUS TUF Gaming all ranked well within 1% of the fastest model. Therefore, once again, the weakest performers include the Sapphire Pulse, XFX Swift, and Asrock Steel Legend. So there you have it, a look at 14 Radeon RX 9070 XT graphics cards. As for which one you should buy, that is largely going to depend on pricing and availability in your region, but the good news is there are no bad models, though there are a few that I would say are less desirable, such as the Gigabyte Gaming and Asrock Steel Legend. The best models here include the XFX Mercury, Sapphire Nitro Plus and Pure, the Powercolor Red Devil, and Asrock Taichi. These models tested well both out of the box and when noise normalized, along with delivering strong gaming performance. Everything else in between was more mid-range but perfectly acceptable. For example, the Powercolor Hellhound was very much a mid-tier performer, but at $1,200 here in Australia, it's one of the very best options in terms of value. The XFX Swift is also good value at $1,230 Australian dollars, though it was one of the weakest performers when it came to gaming, coming in around 4 to 6% slower than the best models, and this is partly why it tested so well in the thermal data, as it ran at a lower clock frequency and therefore consumed less power. In terms of features though, the Hellhound and Swift tick all the boxes, though be aware the Swift is a chunky unit that takes up 4 slots. Over in the US, the Steel Legend and Swift are available for roughly the same price, so I'd recommend the XFX Swift in that case, as it looks and feels like a much higher quality product. It also includes dual BIOS support and much better thermal performance. The ASUS TUF Gaming was perfectly acceptable. Thermal performance wasn't amazing, though the gaming results were generally quite strong, and in terms of features it does have it all. It's a nice looking card with excellent build quality, but at present the pricing is horrible. $850 US or $1,500 here in Australia makes it more expensive than both the Sapphire Nitro Plus and XFX Mercury, both of which are better products in my opinion. The ASUS Prime 9070 XT is much more sensibly priced at $720 US and $1,350 Australian. But it tested towards the bottom for thermals and gaming, so while not bad, there are certainly better options, both in terms of value and performance. So for me, my favourite model is the XFX Mercury, but I also really liked the Sapphire Nitro Plus. If there was a black or white version of the Nitro Plus, I think that would be my favourite overall. And then my favourite choice from a value perspective is the Powercolor Hellhound, particularly the white version, which is a very unique looking graphics card. But as I said, what ends up being the best choice for you will largely be dictated by pricing and availability in your region, but at least for now you can form your own priority list based on the testing in this video. And that is going to do it for this one. If you did enjoy this roundup of 9070 XTs, then please do give it a thumbs up. As I said, the greatest challenge here was actually getting all of the cards, and that's proving very difficult as well for the upcoming AMD B850 motherboard roundup. Yes, that is coming. But for some reason, some of the motherboards are still coming out. Some that have been announced are just entering sort of the retail channels now. So it's a weird one with the B850, but I am doing my best to get them all. I think we have about 40 motherboards on hand at the moment, and we're waiting for just a couple more to get that content out. So yeah, we're pushing as hard as we can. Anyway, as for this one, I don't know, like, subscribe, do the YouTube stuff. We do have the join button or Patreon if you want to get more Hardware Unboxed goodness. That'll get you access to behind the scenes content, our exclusive Discord server. You'll get access to that, Q&A stuff, and stuff. Check it out if you're interested. If not, that is perfectly fine, and I would like to thank you for watching this video. I'm your host, Steve. See you again next time.